I'm 82 years old. For most of my life, I believed love should be quiet, gentle, almost invisible. I thought the people who mattered would just know. They didn't, and now I'm here, wondering how many moments I let slip away. I'm sitting by the window of my small apartment, watching the late afternoon sun stretch across the floor like it's trying to reach me. My hands aren't what they used to be. They shake sometimes, but they still remember. They remember every cup of tea I poured for him, every question I asked about his day, every extra chair I pulled closer. I thought those were enough. I was wrong. This is the story of how I learned that love, when whispered, can go unheard. I was born in 1943 in a little town that smelled like wet soil and fresh bread. My mother used to wake up before sunrise, kneading dough with flour dusting her cheeks like freckles. My father worked in a factory and came home with oil on his hands and stories in his pockets. They were quiet people, not cold, just restrained. In our house, love wasn't spoken. It was folded into laundry, packed into lunches, stitched into hems. My mother never said, "I love you." She'd just place an extra biscuit on your plate and brush crumbs from your shirt. That's how I learned. When I was young, I believed real love didn't need words, that words made it messy, dramatic, needy. I believed love was dignified, subtle, something you noticed, not something you announced. By the time I was 25, I had a job as a secretary in a tall gray building on Maple Street. It was 1968. Everyone smelled like cigarette smoke and cheap cologne. The typewriters were loud, like a room full of nervous birds. That's where I met Daniel. He worked 2 floors above me, in accounting. He had this habit of tapping his pencil against his teeth when he was thinking. He always forgot his lunch and bought the same sad sandwich from the vending machine. We started talking in the stairwell, just little things, weather, elevator being broken again, his pencil tapping. I began noticing things, how his shoulders slumped when he thought no one was watching, how he smiled with only one side of his mouth when he was unsure, how he always said thank you like he meant it. So I started giving him signs, or what I thought were signs. I made him coffee in the mornings, even when he didn't ask. I left notes on his desk when he looked tired. Nothing romantic, just gentle. Don't forget to eat. Big meeting today. You've got this. I learned his favorite music, his stories about his mother, the way he took his tea with too much sugar. When he talked, I leaned in. When he laughed, I watched. When he was quiet, I stayed. In my mind, that was love. I told myself, if he feels it, he'll know. I was confident, almost proud of how composed I was. I thought boldness was childish. I thought longing should be contained, and I was very, very wrong. It was November 1987. I remember because the office smelled like burnt coffee and wet coats. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. My shoes never quite dried. Daniel came to my desk that morning with a piece of paper in his hand. He looked nervous. His pencil was tapping his teeth again. "I got a job offer," he said. My stomach dropped. "In Chicago." I smiled. Of course I smiled. "That's wonderful," I said. My voice was steady, polite, perfect. He waited. I could feel him waiting. For what, I didn't know. I thought my job was to be gracious, supportive, quiet. "I'll miss our coffee," he said. I laughed lightly. "You'll find better coffee there." He nodded. Then he said, "I was hoping maybe we could go to dinner before I leave. Just us." My heart started pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. This was it. This was my moment. But fear sat on my tongue. What if I said too much? What if I made it awkward? What if I was wrong? So I said, That would be nice. Nice. Such a small word for what I felt. We went to a little Italian place on 8th Street. It smelled like garlic and old wood. A violin played softly from a speaker in the corner. He told me about Chicago, about how he was scared, about how he didn't know anyone there. I listened. I always listened. I told him he'd be fine, that he was kind, that people would see that. He smiled at me, long and searching. At the end of the night, outside under a flickering street lamp, he hugged me. Just a hug, not long, not short. And then he said, "You've always been very good to me." I said, "So have you." And that was it. I went home and cried into my pillow, not because he was leaving, but because I felt something unfinished. I told myself it was fine. If he felt it, he would have said something. I didn't realize I had been speaking a language only I understood. Life didn't stop. It never does. I married another man 3 years later. His name was Robert. He was practical, reliable, kind in a quieter way. We had 2 children, a small house, a routine. From the outside it looked like a good life, and it was. But there were moments when I caught myself pouring an extra cup of tea, then realizing no one asked. Moments when I asked questions that were never returned. Moments when I felt invisible, even while being loved. I told myself I was ungrateful. I told myself this was normal. Years passed. My children grew up. Robert passed away suddenly in 2004. A heart attack in our kitchen. I remember the sound of the kettle screaming, the smell of burning metal. After that, the house felt too big. I downsized. I donated old clothes. I tried to simplify. One afternoon in 2011, I was cleaning out a box of old papers when I found a letter from Daniel. It was dated 1988. I don't know why I never opened it. Maybe I was afraid. My hands were shaking as I read. He wrote about Chicago, about how lonely he felt, about how he missed our conversations, about how he wondered if I ever thought about him. Then he wrote, "I always felt something between us, but I didn't know if it was just me." I sat on the floor for a long time. I remember the clock ticking. I remember the hum of the refrigerator. I remember thinking, all this time, I had spent my life believing that love should be understood without being spoken. But here was proof. It wasn't. Not always. I wrote him back, slowly, carefully. He replied. We exchanged letters for a year. Then he stopped. I later found out he had died in a car accident, and that was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, quietly, like a fault line. I began looking back at all the times I had shown love without saying it, the meals cooked, the hands held briefly, the eyes that lingered, the smiles that hoped. And I wondered how many people had never known what I was trying to tell them, how many times I had been misunderstood as distant when I was actually overflowing, how many times my silence had sounded like indifference. Regret doesn't come crashing. It settles. It sits beside you. It asks questions when you're trying to sleep. Now I'm 82. I live alone, but I'm not lonely in the way I used to be. I talk more now. I say what I feel. When my granddaughter calls, I don't just ask about her grades. I tell her I miss her voice. I tell her I'm proud. When my neighbor brings in my groceries, I don't just say thank you. I tell him he makes my days easier. I've learned something too late, but not too late to share. Subtlety can be beautiful, but clarity is kindness. Love that stays hidden might as well not exist. I used to think being composed made me strong. Now I know vulnerability would have made me braver. If you are waiting for someone to just know, they might not. If you think your small gestures speak loudly, They might whisper. If you're hoping someone will read between the lines, they may not even see the page. And that doesn't make them foolish. It just makes them human. I don't regret loving. I regret not letting myself be seen while I did. I don't have many years left. You probably do. So please, don't hide your heart like I did. Say what you feel. Tell someone they matter. Not tomorrow. Today. If this story stirred something in you, stay with this channel. I share what I learned the long way, and I hope you don't have to.